I've been here a lot speaking to you guys. Sometimes I correct people on the last name, other times it's like, it's not Moeller, it's Miller. It's like the beer. It's St. Patrick's Day. If Guinness is in your future, that's great. So we got the lightning round, lots to cover. Usually I kind of set things up with kind of a story. We don't have that kind of time today. I can assure you it won't be as intense as the natural capital stuff, all practical, what we're seeing, what are the challenges, and then more importantly, what are the solutions, if any. In some cases, there aren't great solutions out there to some of these issues. So we're going to dive right in. Labor challenge, no question, the most challenging part of maintaining a golf course for everyone in this room, not just the Med area, not just New York, everyone, really all golf courses throughout the US and Canada. And it's not just at the seasonal labor issue, it's assistants, it's interns. We'll touch on assistants in a second. So lots of different challenges going on with it. There's just not a lot of staff, and it's no surprise. We're in the service industry. Everybody in the service industry is struggling with staff. You look at places like Panera Bread, and all these types of spots where we see every day in our lives, they don't have the workers that they need to produce the types of services that they're trying to do. Your golf course is no different. So lots of open positions on golf courses, difficult to fill those. So what do we do about it? There's a number of factors that can all contribute to getting more staff on the golf courses. I wish there was a one-size-fits-all approach. You can try any number of these. Competitive wages, flexible hours, more seasonal staff, fewer full-time staff, shorter days. You can try all these things, and they might work, they might not work. It's just a matter of sort of what works at your facility. What I'll say is being more flexible, understanding that we've got a golf course to maintain. Maybe we have to maintain it differently. Maybe that's PM shifts. Maybe that's more H-2B workers. There's a lot of different ways to do it. None of them are perfect. If it was just a wages component, we'd all have these things figured out. We'd find the money to do it. But we don't. Oftentimes we hire people, they show up, they work a couple weeks, and then they're gone. So lots of challenges with respect to labor. An obvious solution to this, and I know a number of folks in the room have sort of gone head on with triplex mowers on greens. This is really, on the last slide I had this quote up there, you can't do more with less. You can do less with less. And our superintendents, everyone in the room does a great job of trying to minimize those impacts when you don't have the labor out there. Triplex mowers are probably one exception to that, where one triplex mower can do the job of 4 walk mowers. So really a good option to consider. I know there's a stigma around triplex mowers and you want the narrow stripes, that kind of thing. That's fine, but when you're in this labor pinch, understand that triplex mowers really are that much more efficient and can produce the same quality of cut, potentially the better quality cut than walk mowers. So really something to look into. There are issues with training and things like that you need to worry about with triplex mowers, but the modern equipment is really, really good. So I would look into that if you haven't already. One thing that I will say too, if you're looking to try to convince folks and you need data around that, reach out to us. We've got a mower equipment replacement return on investment calculator. So we can help you sort of figure out how quickly will these mowers actually pay for themselves at our golf courses. And there's some world-class golf courses represented in this room, and there's a lot more triplex mowing going on than you might think. You probably won't see them at the US Open anytime in the near future, but that doesn't mean that the quality cut isn't there. When we think about the perceptions of we've got a great course, we've got a healthy budget, we should be walk mowing our greens. That's definitely a stigma that's out there, like I said. And in some cases it is simply because people want those narrow stripes, which is a bit comical. You play golf on a surface, not on what it looks like. When we polled a group, this was almost 400 superintendents, about what's their use of triplex mowers at their golf course. It was surprising to see most of the folks that actually answered this survey were in that upper tier with respect to their budgets north of $1 million. Only 17% of the top category in terms of budgets use walk mowers exclusively throughout the entire year. So the fact of the matter is, they're being used a lot. In most cases, when you've got tougher greens and you've got a lot of labor, okay, maybe they're just shoulder seasons or when you're trying to double cut, things like that. but there's no reason why we can't be using them more often. Okay, other things in terms of labor solutions, focusing on efficiency. There's a lot of ways to do that, whether that's eliminating or reducing striping patterns. Just mowing it as efficiently as possible sounds great until everyone that was used to seeing those striped up rough, suddenly is asking, well, why isn't the rough striped up anymore? Why isn't the rough striped up anymore? Other things, and this is one where it's a polarizing subject, but do you need that intermediate rough? Do you need that intermediate cut on your golf course? There's nothing in the rules of golf that says you need it. Some of the best golf courses in the world don't have that feature, for daily play. Ultimately, it's something you see on TV, and I understand that it's a nice lie, especially when you're hitting a 3-wood or something. But it's not a crucial part of the golf course. If you get rid of it, you can actually see improved definition, better turf quality in that area because intermediate rough is kind of no man's land. And you can save a ton of money and save a ton of time. And then you move that into more important parts of the golf course. Other things, labor solutions, let bunkers be hazards. This is one where I'm probably preaching to the choir to a number of folks in here. It's the golfers that really need that messaging, and we've got a ton of educational resources that can help you tell that story. But taking labor away from the scenario of we're going to rake bunkers every day and moving it into other parts of the golf course. Reducing your raking frequency to once or twice a week at most is not unheard of. It's definitely an option. Your bunkers are going to play more like hazards. Other things, I'm hearing some courses that have a ton of money are scaling back on their bunker maintenance because they've just got so many things to do, and it's a hazard. Again, easier said than done, but simple ways to do it. More machine raking. There are some consequences to that you've got to be careful with, especially around training and liners and things like that. Maybe it's just using the Aussie method, and that's what's described in this picture. It looks super intense to maintain just like that. But this golf course actually scaled back their bunker maintenance to get the Aussie method. So they just rake the floors, and then they smooth the faces once a week or so. So they're actually raking efficiency is improved by going to this method. And playability improves too, because the ball hits that face, rolls to the bottom. It doesn't always happen if you're fully raking those faces. Other things, just decluttering the golf course a little bit. I'm surprised Dave didn't touch on this. This is like his little pet project that he's had for, 20 years, probably at least. Taking some of the ball washers, benches, water coolers, fewer of them on the golf course is fine. Some golf courses have completely eliminated them, not so much because of, hey, we're going to save 20 grand, by not having these things, but just to take the clutter off the golf course. That's a side benefit. But a lot of hours are spent filling these water coolers, dealing with the ball washers, all that kind of stuff. And it's, some people think it's important, other people it's just get a towel and wet it down before you play, and you're sitting on the golf cart, you bench. Probably not. Water coolers and COVID, we kind of figured it out. We've got water sources out there. You don't need these things. Are they nice to have? Yeah, sure. But when it comes down to how much we're paying for them, this water cooler here, you'd be amazed at how much some of those things cost. Thousands of dollars in some cases. And it's great if you can build those in-house. Okay, that's nice, but you still have to service them. And do they really improve the golf experience? Probably not for the majority. Other things, thinking about the technology. We joked earlier with Brian's presentation around going back to sheeps and goats. We have a different option right now than sheeps and goats. These things are definitely making their way into the golf course market. This is a small robotic mower, very similar to like a Roomba or Shark that you guys may have at your house. They can do a great deal of work. You need a lot of them to maintain your golf course, but there's a lot of promise in this type of equipment. So I wouldn't be shocked over the next 5 or 10 years if we see more and more of these. Europe definitely gets the gold star in terms of jumping on this type of technology sooner than us. Number one, we just don't have as many options. But number two, I think they've just their hand has been forced a little bit from an environmental perspective. These don't use diesel. They don't use on lead. There's maintenance involved, and they may not produce exactly the same quality of cut we're expecting on our fairways or our rough, but they can get pretty darn close. All right, diving into the assistant superintendent issue. This topic really blew up over the weekend. with respect to social media and sort of the turf superintendent world. It was pretty interesting. This is not a new issue. We've gotten articles written about this. This one goes all the way back to 2017. It has been an issue sort of in the making for a long time coming. And for all the ring chairmen in the room, just imagine if you're retired, put yourself back into the position when you were working. You can't replace the most important person on your team, or the top two most important people on your team. They left for whatever reason. And you physically can't replace them. There's not enough people applying. There's not enough people that are interested. I mean, that's the scenario that our golf course superintendents are in right now. Most of these assistants are going to, a small pool of candidates that have the right, potential allure of, future aspirations of, hey, I was at, a week foot or wherever, it had a US Open, I'm going to be in a good spot to be able to get a new job. A lot of courses don't have that ability, so there's a number of reasons how we've gotten to this spot, but there's just so many open positions, and so many golf course superintendents are just like, I don't know what to do. I don't have an assistant, or I've had a posting out for 5 months and gotten 4 applicants, 3 of which don't have any experience whatsoever. We're in a really, really tough scenario. So what do we do about it? There's a lot of different ideas out there. Same thing with the labor. If it was just that simple, we'd have to figure it out. I think it's a combination of pay, it's a combination of looking at work-life balance and flexibility and what folks are really interested in, and that eventually trickles down into golf course expectations. And if we don't have the same resources to maintain the golf course, expectations at some point are going to have to give a little bit. We just had Brad Klein write an article on this idea of looking for a few good assistants. One area that he specifically missed, unfortunately, was the cost of living. And where some of these golf courses are and the cost of living, you're thinking about an assistant superintendent making $50,000, $60,000 a year. That's not a lot of money in this day and age when your tuition you just paid at a 4-year university, you've got $150,000 worth of debt. And then you're looking at a golf course that says you're going to have to work 60, 70 hours a week, every other weekend, and there's not a whole lot of opportunity to move up into a head position for the next 10 years. Like, it doesn't look all that promising. So we need to start thinking about different ways to do it. And one great opportunity, I think, is to cultivate this assistant superintendent position from within. And that's encouraging folks on your staff to look into, whether it's a winter seminar program at Rutgers or UMass or wherever it might be. But cultivating from within gives you an opportunity to hopefully take someone who's got an interest, got experience, give them some education, and set them up to say, look, this is a good career. Maybe you don't have aspirations to be a superintendent. Maybe you just want to be an assistant. That's okay, but we maybe need to adjust our expectations, from the club level to say, we've got someone really valuable here. We need to invest in them. We need to pay them a little bit more to keep them around. Other things, this is something John obviously hit extremely hard this morning, so I won't go too much into it. But the increased play, it's a little sad when we think about COVID caused the golf boom when we step back for a second to realize this was a pandemic of whatever we haven't had one in 100 years. But at the same time, we need to capitalize on it and recognize the challenges that have been created because of all this increased play. There's still more positives than negatives. The traffic is a hard one to ignore when you hit a shot off line and your ball is now on bare dirt and it used to be on good grass. Our golf courses, most of which on Long Island in the Met, were not built for 20,000 rounds or 30,000 rounds, certainly not the amount of golf cart traffic that we experience. So because of that, we're seeing that more wear and tear in those high traffic areas, on tees, drive zones, collection areas. Every place is sort of getting beat down a little bit more towards the tail end of the season. And that means more work has to be done in the fall to get things back. And hopefully things are buttoned up by winter. So we'll see what golf courses look like this spring. It's been another busy year, obviously, in 2021, and we're expecting another busy year this year. So a little bit of adjustment in terms of our expectations with respect to ball lie when we're in those high traffic areas or when we're off the beaten path a little bit. Okay, again, John kind of touched on this a little bit, but with respect to traffic management, some solutions that are out there, definitely looking at changing some of your cart path networks out there, widening them, getting them to flare out a little bit. This was one, a recommendation from Otis from probably 20 years ago. Again, 20 to 40 linear feet of a cart path that doesn't have trees blocking it or bunkers or anything like that. Lots of room for golf carts to enter and exit, and then flare them out. Typically around greens and tees, try to get them a little bit wider, reduce the potential for people to keep those, or make it easier for people to keep all 4 tires on the path. Maybe if golf carts or maybe vehicles have to go around, you've got the room to do so. Divots, again, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but par 3 tees are always taking a beating, let alone when we have 20-30% more play. It's just going to add up. So what we can do here, there's a couple different things that golf courses can do. It does kind of sometimes just boil down to size. And do you have the ability to build a larger tee? It's not often as easy as just scalping on the turf and, okay, let's plant some bent grass and widen our tee. It's usually, we got to rebuild this whole tee to get the drainage right, get our irrigation system coverage where we need it to be. But you focus on the priority areas to get that teeing space where you need it to be. Other things, this is more of a management side of things, and so I'm guessing some superintendents already have some form of covers out on their tees. In some cases, par 3 tees, if they got that beat up last fall. This is not something that we typically saw pre-COVID, unless there was like a late grow-in kind of thing and we needed to get a new surface healed up. This concept of using germination blankets to help with recovery, especially early in the season, is definitely a COVID response, and it may not work all that well at your facility, but sometimes it's worth trying to do something to get your tees to start the season a little bit stronger. So something to think about there. Moving into driving ranges, I can understand people don't like necessarily hitting off of synthetic mats. I'm not that great of a golfer, so when I hit off a mat, it kind of gives me that false sense of security, like I'm not going to totally chunk it. But I'd rather hit off a mat than hit off of really thin, bare ground dirt. And that's where we're at in some cases. We've got so much play and a lot of emphasis on practice that we wear our practice tees down to nothing. So sometimes these things just have to come into play. Tough weather, the growing season right now, you want to get on practice, hopefully it's not on a real grass surface because that's not recovering. That's where these mats come into the equation. So again, are they perfect? No, but they're a really good option. Oops. If you are looking to hit off of grass more often, this is a newer trend that we're seeing. More courses using Bermuda grass for a practice tee. I know there's a couple in the room that have just done these types of projects. Bermuda grass is a warm season species, grows really, really well in the summer. Bent grass, cool season species, really doesn't grow that much in the summer. So we actually did a study this last year at Lehigh Country Club, which is real close to where I live. They have two tee system, bent grass tee and Bermuda grass tee. They use the bent grass tee in the summer. They use the bent grass tee in the summer. Let's take it up again. I think the lightning round title is throwing me here. Gotta go fast. They use the bent grass tee in the spring and the fall, the Bermuda grass tee in the summer. And the reason is because the divots grow that much quicker, they heal that much quicker on the Bermuda grass tee in the summer. So we wanted to know how much quicker. So we did this study, and the results of this are going to be published pretty soon in the Green Section Record, but really the images kind of speak for themselves. After 3 weeks, the Bermuda grass tee was in much better condition compared to the bent grass tee. Now there are issues with that grass. It's not perfect. There is no perfect grass up there. It turns brown in the winter. It can very easily die if you have a really cold winter, but you can sod it, replace it, and be back playing on grass a lot quicker than if it was just a bent grass tee. So something to look into. We're at kind of the northern range of how far we want to use this grass. But again, there's courses in the area, in the Met, that have used this, and the results look pretty good so far. So we'll see. Okay, another sort of hidden challenge with increased play, busy tee sheets, just not enough time to get stuff done. I already hit that, the superintendents in this room probably have a hard time filling their maintenance team. They don't have enough people on staff. And then you've got a really, really busy tee sheet. You just don't have the time to do all the work you need to do. So that has a trickle-down effect, a cumulative effect that, okay, we couldn't get top dressing out, or we couldn't do this. Over time, you'll start to see the conditions in that particular part of the golf course go down. So things like top dressing, that's a 3-part process. You're mowing, getting the sand out, and you're incorporating that sand. You need time to get that done. If you just have tees, full tee sheet starting at 7 a.m., you're not going to be able to stay ahead of play. It's just not going to happen. And it's one of the most important practices you can do to produce smooth, firm, true greens, which everyone wants. We need time to get it done. So how do you do it? We've instituted this sort of concept. Well, the concept's been around for a while, but we've got a Twitter handle, USGA Green Section, and we tweet fairly often on Mondays. It's Maintenance Monday. What that means is you should have some dedicated time. If you're lucky, you've got a whole day where there's no golf. The course is closed. The staff can go out and do a lot of work to the golf course. A lot of those disruptive practices, get ahead of things and get things prepped for the week. A lot of courses, they'll just have a few hours on that Monday where the course is closed, maybe there's an outing afterwards. It gives them still the ability to get out and do things like top pressing, venting, some of these things that take a little bit longer. They can do that without the disruption of golfers, without slowing down because of golfers, and then without disrupting the game that the golfers are trying to play. So lots of different options there. If you follow us on Twitter, you'll see this, it's Maintenance Monday tweet fairly often. Again, the goal is to just say, look, there's a lot of courses that need time for maintenance. Blocking off some tee times is a good option. No tee times before 7 a.m. is a good one. Avoiding back nine tee times, another good one, especially if you don't tell the superintendent, that's pretty much nails on the chalkboard when they're trying to get stuff done, and then suddenly there's like 2 foursomes that just jumped off the back. It's just your efficiency goes way down. Shotgun starts, try to keep those at the earliest 10 a.m. If you're even later, that's great. So some things to think about. Eliminating short tee time intervals is also something to think about, more so from a golfer experience standpoint. Too tight at tee times, play's going to get backed up, pace of play is going to go down, flow is going to go down, the golf experience suffers. And it also makes it really, really hard for the maintenance team to potentially jump into a gap and say, okay, I got to go mow the rough on 13. There's no room, I can't do it. If you widen those tee times out a little bit, flow is better, golf experience is better. Maybe the maintenance team has some time to get some things done in between too. All right, rising cost of goods. This is one that is fortunately not a great solution. Things are just getting more expensive. Fertilizer costs have skyrocketed in the past few weeks, up 40%, 50% in some cases. Bunker sand prices are up, a ton. So if you're looking to get new sand or do a full-on bunker renovation, all these things are going to add up. Obviously, the fuel prices are something we've all experienced. Hopefully not, not immediately today or yesterday, but we'll see where these things go over the next few weeks. Hopefully, things start to settle out a little bit. So, potential solutions specifically around fertilizer, and John mentioned this with the traffic analysis we can do with the USGA GPS service visit. Definitely one to look into where you can change the way you manage parts of your golf course based on the traffic that it experiences. So specifically for fertilizer, there's parts of your rough that you could probably go a year or two without having to fertilize, and maybe you just don't have to mow it as much. Some weeds pop up here or there, but if it's a bit in no man's land already, you'd think that wouldn't be that big of a deal. Same thing with respect to, John mentioned, could you airify those areas differently, or just change the way some of those spots are maintained. Using data is really valuable. A lot of the superintendents in the room already know, right? No one's ever over there, but that's a hard one to sell when you're starting to talk about changing the way parts of the golf course might look or play. Other things with respect to fertility, I just encourage, this is mainly for the superintendents in the room, I'd really encourage you to look long and hard at the fertilizer that you're using out on your golf courses. You probably already made these purchases, but we've done studies, there's been a lot of research out there. Urea is a really, really good product. It's almost too cheap, and so you kind of think, this can't be that good. It is that good. Most of the fertilizer is derived from urea that we have. The grass doesn't know the cost. Check out the Green Section record that's going to come out tomorrow. We're republishing this article. We've updated it. Does the grass know the cost? It doesn't. So there may be some other reasons to use some of these higher priced fertilizers, but if you're in that pinch, especially for your larger areas, look into some lower cost materials they're probably going to produce the same results. All right, I want to finish up on sort of driving home that good golf experience. So this is something that, at least it's relevant for me. I'm more of a beer drinker than Dave's a wine drinker, apparently. You need those two things to have a good golf course: good greens, good beer, or something with alcohol in it. And so I wanted to just finish up on making sure you're doing the right things for your greens. It starts with trees. We touched on this. If there's shade, if there's limited air movement, roots, your greens, those greens are just not going to be as strong. They're not going to be able to tolerate the same maintenance programs that your greens in more open environments can produce. So when in doubt, make sure to be proactive with your greens, taking trees down, pruning trees in some cases if it's a property line, and you've got to be really sensitive on it. But the nice part, and Dave touched on this, we seem like we've got some momentum with trees. There's been a lot of articles written recently about this concept of addition by subtraction, sort of taking trees out to actually make the course feel a little bit more open and free and less cluttered. So definitely a good trend, and we're excited about that. If anyone, trees are a very sensitive subject, and it's something that USGA has been involved with courses for many, many years. We can help you develop a tree management plan for your golf course that takes in science, that removes the emotional aspect of trees at your golf course, and in some cases kind of makes us the bad guy, which we're fine with. We take plenty of arrows already. So we can help you develop some sort of a tree management plan in your golf course, like what we have here, where you get a holistic map of all the trees in your golf course, which ones need to go, which ones need to be pruned, things like that. Other things, drainage. Again, you have to have good drainage in your greens to have good greens, otherwise you're just going to be really prone to the ups and downs that Mother Nature gives us. So on soil-based greens, investing in internal drainage, investing in drill and fill aeration programs, regular core aeration. I know these things are costly and sometimes more disruption than what you want, but there's a reason why they're proven. They're really effective, and it's your greens. It's not a place to skimp and just keep deferring maintenance over time. We have seen some severe cases. Courses are full-on rebuilding, and that's awesome. It's usually part of a larger renovation. But the interesting part with a lot of these renovations is that not only has there been a focus on, if we want more modern technology, better drainage, more consistent greens from one to the other, there's been a specific emphasis on firmness within building these newer greens at a lot of these courses. And that's something that you can't easily do with a native soil green. You're not manipulating that soil as much. You can start over and rebuild your greens, maximize your firmness, reduce how much sort of babysitting you might need to do for those types of greens, and again, get a better surface at the end of it. Hard pill to swallow. That's why there's not that many courses up here that are rebuilt their greens. Biggest thing is, I think, making sure your superintendent has the time to focus on the greens, doing the cultural practices that emphasize, smooth, true. Fast is not something that you should be focused on. I understand that wearing the USGA logo on my shirt necessarily, we don't have a whole lot of leeway to talk about that when we look at the US Open. But daily play, fast is not the goal. Smoothness, trueness. So you need various programs in your sort of toolkit, whether that's top dressing, brushing, verticutting. It's not just mowing and rolling. There's a lot more that goes on around the greens, and these guys need time to do it. And then something that I just want to touch on at the end, the golf experience I touched on around the greens. That's where everyone's focus really ends up. It shouldn't stop at just the agronomy. This is a new area that we're working into with respect to pin sheets and having these cool hole location sheets that are available. And maybe it's not something that you want for your everyday golfer, but for your big events, your club championship, your member guest. These are little extras that can improve that golf experience, that can say, greens were awesome. Hey, did you see the hole location sheet? Like, my rangefinder can tell me how far I am to the pin. It can't tell you how much, further away that bunker is from the pin. And that's what some of these pin sheets can do. So lots of different ways to look at that golf experience and focus on the greens. But this is a new one that we're in, so be happy to touch on this after the presentation. Okay, finishing up on the lightning round. Again, labor challenges, challenge with assistant superintendents. These are not issues that are going to go away overnight. Superintendents are doing as much as they can to try to solve these issues at their course. But again, it's not something that instantly, okay, go hire more people. If it was that easy, we wouldn't be in this situation. Other things, if you're looking to invest, and obviously renovations are really popular right now because of the Gulf resurgence. really focus on what's going to set your golf course up for the next 5, 10, 20, 50 years, and what's got an ROI and what doesn't. What are sort of the pet projects versus what are the good improvement projects with respect to the infrastructure that can really set your course up on the right path. So that was the lightning round. That's pretty fast for someone from Wisconsin to talk, so happy to have answer any questions if we have time. I don't know if we do. That went 2 minutes over. Any questions? Yep, my pleasure.